Here to discuss collision department myths versus collision department facts is Larry Edwards, president of Edwards & Associates Consulting, Inc. Please give him a warm welcome.
Today we're going to be talking about the one department in your dealership that is a virtual recession-proof business. The great thing about the collision center is that 95% of the customers that walk through the door of your collision shop have already paid the bill. The only decision that customer needs to make is, who do I want to buy my car from? Now imagine if every customer that came into your showroom floor had already paid for the new vehicle, and the only decision they had to make was, who do I want to buy my car from? Who do I want to pick it up from? And that's the way it works in the collision business. The other thing we're going to be talking about today is the one department in your dealership that has the greatest opportunity to be the single most profitable department in your entire store. Before we get into all the wonderful things about owning a collision center, let's talk a little bit about the collision industry. There are 34,000 independent collision repair shops in the United States, and that's down from 65,000 shops in 1995. There are 7,000 franchise new car dealers in the United States, and that's down from 12,000 franchise dealers in 1995. So over the last 20 years, we've seen the industry has been getting fewer and fewer shops. But the reality of the situation is the volume has remained consistent, and it's grown year over year over year. And so what's happening is the smaller shops are being forced out of this industry because they can't keep up. Another thing that's changed dramatically since 1995, in 1995, approximately 10% of all collision shops in the United States had some form of insurance company direct repair program. Today, over 90% of all the shops in America have some, or at least one, insurance company direct repair program. Here's a big myth that's been perpetuated in our industry. Dealerships can't compete with independents and national chain collision shops. Here's a fact that you need to be aware of. Of the 7,000 dealership collision shops in America, they generate $7.3 billion in annual repair revenue. The average sales per store is over $1 million a year. Dealership collision centers' volume is nearly double the volume of an independent collision center. Dealership shops represent 14% of all the shops in America, but dealership shops generate 24% of all the collision repairs in the U.S. So I think that myth about you can't make money in the collision business was perpetuated by the dealers that already have collision shops who don't want nobody else getting into the business, because it's a tremendous opportunity to make money in your collision shop. Here's another fact. Insurance companies prefer to have franchise new car dealers work on their customers' cars. The reason insurance companies prefer dealers is because customers overwhelmingly prefer dealers to work on their cars. We did some studies for a major manufacturer. We did 35 focus groups in North America and US and Canada. And then we followed those focus groups up with 4,000 direct studies of customers who had been involved in a collision accident. 85% of those customers who are involved in an accident would prefer to have a franchise new car dealer repair their vehicle. Now, the reason they would prefer a franchise new car dealer is because the dealer's brand is one of the strongest brands within their market. They have the highest name recognition, the greatest quality trust perception, and the customers perceive that the franchise dealer is going to stand behind the repairs much better than an independent aftermarket shop down the street that may or may not have an incentive to look after them. And so one of the reasons insurance companies prefer dealers overwhelmingly is because the insurance company customers are saying to them, I want to take my car to a franchise dealer. And even if your dealer doesn't have a collision center, their selling dealer doesn't have one, those customers still want to take that car to a franchise dealer to be repaired. In fact, we've actually done greenfield collision centers where we start with a green piece of land and end up with a completely finished brand new collision center, and we've been able to go to insurance companies and negotiate direct repair programs before we ever open the doors of the shop, based on the strength of how many customers that dealer has in their market area, and based on the strength that overwhelmingly those customers would prefer a franchised new car dealer. Fact of the matter is, the collision industry is growing at a tremendous rate. I'll share some statistics with you in a moment, but let's talk about why it's growing. Electronics. The ability to keep up with the electronics in the vehicles is forcing the aftermarket shops out of business. There's no way they can keep up with all the control units and all the ECM controls and all the drive-by-wire stuff and all the technology that's out there. The materials that we use to build the cars forcing a lot of the smaller competitors out. We have vehicles on the road today that have a carbon fiber roof, they have a high-strength steel substructure, they have aluminum fenders, and they have composites on either end of the vehicle. Now, I got news for you. You can't use an old tack welder and some mud that in. When you're working on a car that has all those different composites in it, it requires specialized training and specialized tools. And that's one of the reasons that we're seeing the smaller competitors get out of business. They can afford the capital to keep up with the end-to-end training to keep up. Dealers have this built-in customer base. Dealers already possess the tools, the technology, and the training to work on these vehicles. The dealership technicians are experts on their vehicles. The dealers have direct access to the manufacturers for how to repair the vehicles and how to work on them. Insurance companies prefer franchise new car dealers for their direct repair programs. And let me tell you why. The insurance company knows that a franchise dealer has much greater incentive to stand behind the repairs than an independent shop down the street. One of the keys to getting on a direct repair program is your shop has to agree to give a lifetime warranty on the repairs. That lifetime warranty is not worth very much if you got a shop that's not going to be around to take care of that warranty and to stand behind that work. The dealer's going to be there. The dealer's going to be there, and the dealer's going to stand behind their work. Repair costs. We talked about how much the industry is growing. Let me put this in perspective for you. In 2006, the average cost of repair, collision repair, was $1,950. Now in 1995, or 96, the cost of repair was $1,750. So for a 10-year period, the average cost to repair a collision accident went from $1,750 to $1,950. From 2006 to 2016, the average cost to repair went from $1,950 to $2,700. We've seen a 38% increase in the last 10 years on an industry that had very little growth over the last 30 years. And what's happening is, as they put more technology in the cars, that drives up the price. And when you look at the average dealership collision repair order at 50% gross profit, that's a tremendous gross profit opportunity. Let me put this in a better perspective for you. A dealership service department has to write 10 customer-paid repair orders to generate the same amount of revenue as the collision shop does with one repair order. Now, imagine how much more support staff that service department has to handle 10 customers versus a collision shop that gets the same amount of revenue for each customer that they do. The other great thing about repair costs is they're predicted to go up. The technological revolution we're going through in our industry isn't going to change. And the more technology they put in cars, the higher the cost of repairing these collision damaged vehicles is going to be. Complexity is going to force the smaller competitors out. Multiple material types within the vehicle are going to add so much complexity to it that the independent shops are not going to be able to keep up. They're going to have to either be a multiple shop operation or a dealership collision center to be able to afford the capital and the training and the technology to keep up in the business. And the challenge doesn't just lie in a single substrate. I know there was a big concern in our industry about Ford going to aluminum bodies. If people were familiar with the heavy truck industry, heavy trucks had aluminum bodies on them forever almost. You know, most of your heavy trucks on the road today have aluminum cabs and fiberglass or composite hoods and fenders on them. It's not the single composite aluminum. That's not the big challenge today. The challenge is going to be when they combine carbon fiber with aluminum with high-strength steel. The methods, the techniques, the way things were done in the past will no longer apply in the future. And people that want these cars repaired are going to have to pay the price for that training and technology. Repairs have to keep pace with all the new materials and all the new technologies coming out of the marketplace. Tools such as the integrated repair method data and the training and certification programs by the original equipment manufacturers are critical to being successful. It's no longer acceptable today to have a shop full of technicians that aren't trained and aren't certified. Your technicians must, at a very minimum, be ICAR certified and ASE certified, and then ideally should be manufacturer certified as well. Repairs are going to have to improve on improving production methods. The old days of drop your car off on Monday and pick it up on Friday doesn't cut it anymore. And if it's a heavy hit, you pick it up 2 Fridays from today. Talking about that, dropping them off on Monday, you know, collision center is the only place in the world, and in fact, I'm pretty sure the Pope's going to declare a saint of collision center operations, because the collision center is the only place in the world that a miracle occurs 12 times a year. So a collision shop will go along for 18 working days in a month and put $60,000 worth of revenue on the books. And then on the last day of the month, they will generate $150,000 in sales. The only acceptable explanation for that is it's got to be a miracle. We need a saint of body shop operations, that either that or there are a bunch of magicians back there that can generate that kind of revenue in one day. Collision industry has benefited greatly from the use of this technology. Technology has really improved collision center operations. We now have the ability to keep our customer real-time updates of where the status is of the vehicle, what's going on with the vehicle, where your parts are, where your vehicle is, when it's going to be done. Customer can dial in and see pictures of the vehicle. We can upload pictures to them. The ability to upload our estimates directly to the insurance company. The ability to file our supplements directly to the insurance company. This technology has had the advantage of shaving time off the repair. So while the cost of repair is going up by 38% over the last 10 years, the cycle times have continually reduced. And they continue to get better and better and better every day. And technology is helping our dealers tremendously to do that. Technology has shaved the time off of the claims repair process. Today, in many dealerships, the customer could come in today, write the estimate, we can get the parts in, paint them overnight, and put them on the car tomorrow. It has really improved our processes. Repairs that want to be successful in the future have to balance their ability to repair cars with the ability to deliver high levels of productivity and customer satisfaction. Now let's talk about that. One of the biggest problems that we encounter in dealership collision centers is the customer's not treated as a part of the process. When the customer tries to call your dealership collision center and they can't get anybody to answer the phone, and then they call back the second time or the third time and somebody answers the phone and they go, well, I've just been involved in an accident and I want your dealership to repair my car. I need to know what the process is. And your dealership says to that customer, well, who's your insurance company? And the customer says, well, I've got XYZ insurance. And they go, well, take it to your insurance company, get an estimate, and then bring it to us. You know the odds of that customer making it back to your store if they go to the insurance company to write their estimate? Even worse than that is the customer that can get on your dealership lot and find your body shop and walks through the door and says, I'd like to get an estimate. And they go, well, who's your insurance company? And they go, well, I got XYZ insurance. Well, take it to them and then get an estimate. They'll bring it back. We'll fix it for you. By the way, finding your body shop on the dealership lot is a real challenge. We did a study down in Houston, Texas a few years ago. We sent mystery shoppers to 21 dealerships that have collision centers. We told the mystery shoppers to pull up to the front of the dealership, to the showroom, walk into the showroom, and ask them if they have a collision center and where it's at. 7 of the 21 dealerships says, we're not sure. 3 of them said, Yes, we have a collision center, but they're all backed up. We recommend you send it to Billy Bob's independent body shop down the street. You see, there's a rule, I don't know if you're aware of this, but if you're a dealer and you have a collision shop, there's a rule that has to be put as far in the back of the property as you can. And there's another rule, you can't put any signs up how to get back there. And there's another rule that you don't think about the customers being a part of the process. It's just a place to drop them off and pick them up. Another myth that we see in our industry is that government regulations make it way too expensive to own and operate a collision shop. Well, here's the fact. Those regulations favor dealers. Yes, government regulations that control the collision repair industry favor dealers, and here's why. Dealership collision centers have the same regulations as your service department. Dealers already know how to deal with that. Dealers already have systems in place to deal with all those regulations. The only additional regulations for a collision center versus a service department are the paint material hazardous waste, and all of your paint suppliers help you with the tracking of that. They provide you computerized software programs that handle that. You know, there's a whole plethora of government agencies out there whose sole mission in life is to help you manage your body shop. We have local waste rules. We have the EPA's helps us manage our body shop. We have our state departments of ecology that help us manage our body shop. OSHA helps us manage our body. All these people are out there for our safety and concern, right? They're helping us out. And then we have the city and the fire departments and all those people. Let me tell you the 4 biggest issues that we find. Everybody talks about all those people involved. Let me tell you the 4 biggest issues that we run into working with collision shops as it relates to being out of line with government regulations. Number 1, container management covers and storage. You can't mix paint up and leave it in an open container. You can't wash your paint guns, materials, and thinner and leave those containers open. And the biggest problem we see is that shops don't handle their material properly. It's not that hard, just got to put a lid on it. Labeling of hazardous materials. Here's another problem we encounter. The computerized paint mixing systems will mix down to an ounce of material or less. And most painters are scared to death of that. So they turn that off, and then they mix a quart or a gallon or a half gallon. So they have some left over. Now, I think the reason they do that is they believe that paint is like fine wine, that you mix it, put it on the shelf, and it gets more valuable with age. Because we've been in dealerships to find $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 worth of mixed paint sitting under a shelf somewhere, waiting for the market to get right to sell it, I presume, because I don't know any other reason that you would mix paint up and stick it under a shelf and let it sit there. Unless, of course, you're selling paint. Unless, of course, you're selling paint. You know, the number 1 source for paint materials for the small independent body shops is dealership collision painters. They buy them out the back door. Most of the markets we go into when we're working with a collision shop, one of the first things we do is go to eBay and see who has an eBay paint store that's selling mixed paint on eBay. I found about 6 of them in the last year. The last thing is record keeping. And the reason nobody wants to keep records is they don't want to know how much paint's being lost out the back door, how much shrinkage is going on. So let me review. Everybody says, well, you can't be in the body shop business because of all the government regulations. The 4 biggest problems we encounter: container storage, labeling of your materials, and every time you mix it, your mixing system prints out a label, so all you got to do is put it on there. Keeping materials beyond their expiration dates, and keeping records on your hazardous materials. It's not that hard. The largest hurdle that we encounter when we do a greenfield collision center, and a greenfield is where we start with a blank piece of land and start a new collision center. The biggest hurdle that we encounter in a collision shop is making the local municipalities understand that a collision center zero environmental hazardous. It's the most greenest department in your market area. And let me explain why. All of the paint does not go on the vehicle is filtered and recycled. All of the metal that's taken off the vehicles is recycled. All the glass that's taken off the vehicles recycled. All of the plastics recycled. Virtually everything that's taken off a collision repair is recycled. And when you look at the only other thing is water usage, and when you look at water usage in a collision center, it's about 1/10 of your typical office building. So a collision center is not that dirty environmental hazard place that a lot of people have a perception of it is. In fact, it's one of the greenest businesses in your whole market area. They recycle more than anybody. Myth: insurance companies require shops to use aftermarket salvage parts. Fact: almost every state has laws that give the customer the right to choose the type of parts that are going to be utilized in the repair. Ignorance of these laws perpetuates the myth that the insurance companies dictate the type of materials and parts that you use. Most state laws read like this Washington state law right here. The owner has the right to know that non-OEM parts are going to be used in the repair of your vehicle. Myth: insurance companies are steering my dealership customers to their preferred shops. Well, steering is against the law. Steering is against the law. But let's talk about that. If you're an insurance company, remember, insurance companies are writing checks to every collision shop in their market area. So they know how long it takes to get a car done in this shop and that shop, and they know the average cost of repair in all these different places. And you're an insurance company, and you know that this dealership body shop over here has superior cycle times, world-class cycle times, world-class quality repairs, highest customer satisfaction in the market area. When those insurance adjusters are writing those estimates and they're talking to those customers, they hand them that check and they go, "You're free to take this vehicle anywhere you'd like to have it repaired. Have you thought about where you want to take it to?" And when the customer says, "No, I haven't," which is usually what they say, then the insurance company says, "Well, we find that these shops," and they never put one specific shop, "but we find that these shops do superior quality repairs and stand behind their work." Now, that's not steering. That's simply stating facts with their customers. Here's another myth. In order to get more insurance business, these other shops are paying these insurance appraisers off for their business. Let me tell you something. In my career, 100% of the time when I go into a dealership that's losing money in their body shop, 100% of the time, the manager's trying to convince me that the reason they don't have any business is because other shops are paying the insurance companies under the table for the business. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact that that manager's cycle times are the worst in the entire universe. Has nothing to do with the fact that they do terrible, poor quality repairs. Has nothing to do with the fact they never keep their customers informed during the repair process. It's pretty easy to blame it on outside forces. It's a lot more difficult to look inside your own business. Most state laws read like this: the owner shall not be required to travel an unreasonable distance to get an estimate, and the owner has the right to request the insurance provider provide them with a list of names of shops that will stand behind their work. When an insurer designates a specific shop, for example, direct repair program, and they never designate a specific shop. When they call the 1-800 claims number, they give them a list of shops. And if the best shops are always at the top of that list, I might add. But when they designate that, the laws require the insurance company to stand behind the repairs. In other words, the insurance company has to restore it to prior condition and stand behind the work at the body shop that they recommended the customer go to. Now, that's real easy for the insurance company to do, and I'll tell you why. Because the insurance company requires the shop to give a lifetime warranty on those repairs. So you see, if you're on a direct repair program, you may not be aware of this, you have to give that insurance company a lifetime warranty on the workmanship that your shop does. So it's really to the insurance company's advantage, it's to the customer's advantage to use DRP program to get their cars done. Insurance company cannot make a denial solely based upon the shop's hourly rate. Last year, there was a huge lawsuit settled in Connecticut by the Connecticut Auto Body Insurers Association. they took Hartford Insurance Company to court. The state association took them to court for non-payment of ICAR recommended repairs. So let me explain what happened. The industry has an estimating system that we all adhere to, these ICAR standards were developed by the industry, developed by the body shops, the paint company, the parts suppliers, insurance companies. Everybody signed off on the proper ways to repair a car. For example, if it's a two-stage paint, you should blend the adjacent panel. If the car has a structural damage to it, you should check the frame alignment on the vehicle. Now, what was happening in Connecticut is that Hartford's appraisers, when the shop would write an estimate and put a blend on there, the appraiser would say to the shop, we're not going to pay that. We will not pay that. When it had a structural designation in it, and it's called for checking the frame alignment on the vehicle, the appraisers would say, we're not going to pay for that. Now, those shop owners, what they did was, every time the Hartfords refused to pay for a recommended repair, they printed it out, showed them where it was a recommended repair, and they said to them, if you don't want to pay for it, then please sign that you're going to refuse to pay for this recommended repair. Hartford's agents would not sign it. They were verbally intimidating them, but they wouldn't sign that they refused to pay for it. They proved that they had over $10 million in recommended repairs that Hartford owed them for that they wouldn't pay, and they won the $10 million settlement. But the icing on the cake was the judge gave Hartford Insurance a $20 million punitive damage award to the body shops because the appraisers would not sign the report and used intimidation tactics to deny the claim. So there's a lot of people that, there's a lot of myths about insurance companies do this and this. We have standards in our industry. We have the ICAR certification, and ICAR tells us the proper standards to repair the vehicles. Every insurance company in America has signed off that they agree to use the ICAR standards. Ignorance of the ICAR standards, failing to have your technicians ICAR certified, failing to train your estimators of how to do ICAR repairs is the reason that in most cases shops don't get paid for the things they're entitled to. Remember, dealers have a built-in customer base. And by the way, I don't want anybody to think that there has to be an adversarial relationship with your insurance company to get the things you're entitled to. That's not what I'm trying to say here. Insurers want dealers to fix their vehicles. Insurers want the same things that dealers want. They want happy customers that are satisfied with repairs, so they'll keep that insurance policy. Dealers want happy customers satisfied with repairs, so they buy their next vehicle. It doesn't have to be an adversarial relationship. It should be a true symbiotic relationship. And a symbiotic relationship means there's something in it for both parties. The great thing for dealers about being on direct repair is you get to submit your own supplements. The other nice thing about a dealer having a collision center is that approximately 11% of all accidents result in total losses. And the dealer that has a collision center is going to get first shot at those. Now, that 11% number varies wildly year over year. And here's what happens. When manufacturers introduce new models into the marketplace, the percentage of totals will go up dramatically for those new model vehicles. In other words, they'll lower the threshold for totaling that vehicle. And there's a very good reason the insurance companies do that. The reason they lower the threshold is they want to get those salvage parts out there in the marketplace. The more salvage parts that are available, the more salvage parts they can require to be used on the estimate, the lower their overall cost is going to be. And so the insurance company is the chief benefactor from totaling new model vehicles. Now, if that model's in the marketplace and there's plenty of salvage parts out there, there's a different threshold for totaling of those vehicles. One of the complaints I hear a lot of time from body shop managers losing money is, well, the insurance company's always totaling everything. We write a lot of tickets, but the insurance company totals them. Well, probably they're totaling them because it's a new model. They're not totaling them because they don't want the dealership repairing the cars. Increased part sales and gross, return reserves by having a collision center. 45% of that $2,700 ticket goes to your parts department. 8% of that $2,700 ticket, 8% of that $2,700 ticket is going to go to a mechanical shop. Another 8% of that's going to go to paint materials. So there's a lot of money to get spread around the dealership. As I said, this is a recession-proof business. It's as close as you'll ever get to a recession-proof business. What happens in our industry when the economy turns down? We have the same number of people involved in accidents all the time. On average, every day in America, about 8% of the population gets up, gets dressed, and goes out and finds something to crash into. And then there are others, like my wife, who's a frequent crasher. She has crashes all the time. And so the nice thing about our business is that every day somebody's going to wreck a car, no matter what the economy's doing. The only thing that happens when we have down economies is that the cost of repairs drop considerably because most of the accidents are occurring closer to home. People aren't driving as longer distances. The other nice thing about having a collision center is it provides your dealer with a full service promise to your customers. When properly managed, collision department can be the single most profitable department in your entire dealership. We have several customers that are making over 25% net profit for every dollar that comes in their collision center. I'd like to see you do that in other departments in the store. It's a tremendous profit opportunity. So you have a virtual recession-proof business and a high profit opportunity. What's holding dealers back are all these myths about government regulation and steering and all aftermarket parts and all that stuff. Here's another myth. Insurance companies control your labor rate. Therefore, I can't make any money. I can't tell you how many times I had people say to me, dealers say, well, I can't make money at a $50 labor rate. That's a real myth. Let me show you. Let me show you this graph here. A mechanical shop effective labor rate, $100 an hour. Mechanical shop technicians work at about 85% productivity and efficiency. So that's an effective income rate of $85 per hour. Now, the body shop on a $55 labor rate, their technicians produce at 170% proficiency. And we got shops that routinely do over 200% proficiency all the time. $55 hourly rate at 170% is a $93.50 effective labor rate. See, what people don't understand about collision shop, in the service department, a flat rate time allowance of an hour takes about an hour. In the body shop, a flat rate time of an hour takes 30 minutes or less. And what's happened, the reason this has happened is over the years, insurance companies have tried to keep the labor costs down. And while they're fighting to keep the labor costs down, the managers, the shop owners, are driving up the flat rate hours. And what's happened is we have low labor rates but high proficiency, which is a great profit opportunity for us. Insurance companies can only control your rates to the extent that you allow them to negotiate rates with you. And the key word here is negotiate. Rates are negotiable. Let me say that again. Rates are negotiable. I'll give you a good example. Nationwide Insurance requires their field adjusters to take 2 weeks of negotiation training annually. How much negotiation training has your body shop people received in the last year? And see, the first thing they teach them in negotiation class, by the way, I've taught some of their classes for them, the first thing we teach in our negotiation is to say, no, we don't do that. And the second thing we teach them is to say, no, we don't do that. And the third thing they say is, we are absolutely not going to do that. But a shop manager that understands that they are negotiating, I'll give you a good example. I got a shop out in Iowa that has a $40 an hour labor rate for their metal repairs. But they have a $65 hourly rate for paint materials. So what's important to your shop is keeping that gross profit margin on everything at 50%. So it really doesn't matter where I make it up. And if it makes the insurance company happy to pay me $40 over here and pay me twice what I'm entitled to over here, as long as you're making that money. And that's what negotiation's all about. Both parties need to come out of negotiations feeling like they won. Here's what happens in our industry. The largest insurance company in the world is State Farm. They have about a 15% share of the market. And the way you get to be the largest insurance company in the world is that you have more customers. And so they send a shop 2-3 times the amount of volume that a typical insurance company might send. Now, different parts of the country, that rule is hard and fast. For example, if you're in Fort Rucker, Alabama, USAA is going to be your top insurance company in your market area. If you're in Washington, D.C. area, Geico is going to be your top company. But when we look at it on a nationwide basis, State Farm is the big dog on the block. So here's what happens in our industry. State Farm, by virtue of its volume, can negotiate the best rates. What happens in our industry that every other insurance company walks in the door behind State Farm and says, well, we pay State Farm's rates. And most of the managers go, oh, well, okay, if that's all you want to do. What they should say is, we will be happy to charge you the same rate we do State Farm when you send our shop as much volume as State Farm does. I mean, think about it. If a customer walked in a dealership and said, I want to buy 20 vehicles, we're not going to sell them the same rate as one person that bought one. But what's happening in the collision center is we're selling the customer that gets one collision repair a month or 2 a month the same rate as the insurance company to send me 25 or 30 repairs a month. Here's what you should say when they say we pay State Farm's rates. You can have State Farm's rate when you send me the same volume. Here's why dealerships don't traditionally negotiate for the best rate, because they don't have skin in the game. See that independent body shop owner out there? If he doesn't control his margins, he gets to go out of business. A dealership body shop manager can survive forever almost losing money. The first thing they do is they blame it on the weather. Well, boss, we just had too good of weather around here. And then if they're not making money, they go, well, boss, it's slow everywhere. And then the third thing they do if they're not making money, they say, well, the insurance company, that guy across town, he's paying off the appraisers. Nobody ever admits the reason we're not making any money in our body shops is because we're doing a lousy job of managing it. When we work with shops, we recommend to have a 3-tiered pricing level. One price for your 2 highest volume insurance companies that do the most business with you, and that should be your lowest rate. A second tier, $3 to $5 an hour higher for the 3rd and 4th highest volume insurance companies, and then a third rate for all of the other companies that just send you occasional work. And that rate should be $10 to $12 an hour higher. We have shops that are getting those rates all over the country. Now, here's why a lot of shops don't do that. They don't do it because it's too much work to go in and set up the setups in their computer system to make it have different rates for different companies. By the way, we're talking about system setups. State Farm, if you're on their direct repair program, their estimating database, they say to the shop that's on the program, you must use our system setups. Now what that means is, if I pull an estimate up in State Farm, and it has a blend to an adjacent panel because we're painting a fender, we need to blend into the door to make the paint match. If it has a structural repair, and we're supposed to check the frame for alignment on it. If it's a bumper replacement, we're supposed to replace all the clips because they're one-time use products. Well, those 3 things will not pull up on the State Farm estimate. Now, it doesn't mean you're not entitled to those. What it means is when you pull those things up, you have to go back into your system and pull those things out of a different section and pull them over and put them into your estimate. Now, the reason insurance companies do that is because they know a lot of estimators are lazy and don't pull those items over that they're entitled to. And what makes it even worse is most shop owners will set their whole system up on the State Farm setups, and every single estimate they write's leaving out all the money they're entitled to. We find the average shop leaves $300 to $600 per ticket off by not asking for the things that they're entitled to, by simply not putting it on the repair order. Insurance company dictates how my shop wants me to repair vehicles. They demand that we use aftermarket salvage parts, and my technicians refuse to use these parts. It's crazy to have your technicians managing your shop. It's crazy to have your technicians dictating how we're going to repair vehicles. First of all, USA's insurance policy says that if you're a USA policyholder and you're involved in an accident, your vehicle's over 12 months old, USAA says we reserve the right to use aftermarket salvage parts on your repairs. Now, that's not written into every policy, so if your body shop's refusing to use those, then you aren't going to do any USAA business. But here's what some dealers do. Some dealers will write the ticket for a salvage part and then put an OE part on there and absorb the cost difference in the parts. That's lunacy. That's the definition of lunatic right there. Letting the technician control your gross profit margins. It's crazy. If a customer's policy doesn't specifically call for an aftermarket salvage part, then the customer and not the insurance company is the person who chooses the type of parts that they want in their vehicle. And again, I just want to say this is a negotiated item. Again, dealership employees, by and large, aren't taught how to negotiate. They simply take what the adjuster tells them as fact. First off, not all aftermarket parts are bad. Again, the collision industry has addressed this many, many years ago. When aftermarket parts were first introduced to the industry got together with ICAR, and everybody agreed. The insurance companies, the shop repairers, the training companies, the supply companies, all agreed that if the aftermarket part was certified by CAPA, Collision Aftermarket Parts Certification Association, if it is a CAPA certified part, which means it meets OE standards for metal thickness, rust inhibitors, et cetera, fit finish. If it's a CAPA certified part, then everybody agreed it's okay to use it. Little known fact, there are only about 2,000 CAPA certified aftermarket parts out there. And if it's a part that insurance company wants you to use that's non-CAPA certified, you don't have to use it. If it is, there shouldn't be anything wrong with using it because our industry has said these parts are acceptable. Shops that are willing to use aftermarket parts and salvage parts are much more likely to do work with insurance companies than other shops. Here's another myth. You can't make any money because insurance company controls who fixes the car. Crazy. It's ridiculous. The customer's choice where they want to get it repaired. The average aftermarket shop makes 8% net profit. Those 35,000 independent shops on average make 8% net profit annually. That's a lot more than the average dealership makes annually. Many of the dealers that we work with, collision shop is the single most profitable department in their dealership. We have shops that are making in excess of 30% net to sales. We got dealership shops that do over $1 million in sales a month and make $1.5 million, $2 million a year profit. That is a tremendous business to be in. Now, in order to have a highly profitable collision center, you must understand a few important facts. Customers who are involved in an accident have already paid for the repair. The only decision they have to make is where they want to get their vehicle repaired. If I walk in the door of your body shop and the message that's sent to me is customers not welcome here, then they're probably not going to want to do business with you. But if I walk in the door of your body shop and it looks like the lobby at the Marriott Hotel down here, I'm going to think this might be a place that wants my business. Customers are free to choose any shop that they want. In order to gain business, you must first demonstrate that you want their business, and once you obtain their business, you must demonstrate how much you appreciate it. Most body shops don't keep them informed and don't show how much appreciation for the customer once they come in. My experience is that most dealership body shops are much more focused on keeping their technicians happy than they are about keeping their customers happy. And the key to success in this business is happy customers. By the way, if you have happy customers, you're going to have happy technicians. They have poor reception areas. They don't sell features, advantages, and benefits. Once they obtain a job, they keep them way longer than necessary, and they don't keep the customer informed during the process. So with all these negative myths surrounding collision centers, is it any wonder that only a few dealerships have collision centers? By the way, you might not be aware of this, but most of those myths are perpetuated by dealers that have highly profitable collision shops. They don't want you in this business. So let me tell you what it takes to grow your business. Number one is staff And by the way, while I'm on that, let me just share this. It doesn't matter what business you're in, okay? Whether you're running this convention center, running a hotel, or running a body shop, the two most important elements to success is the staffing structure of your organization. We find that the average dealership collision center is understaffed relative to the potential that exists. We're working with a dealer right now in Dayton, Ohio. He has 6 technicians and 1 body shop manager. No estimators, no admin people, no parts people, and the dealer wants us to help make his body shop profitable. It's not going to happen because he doesn't have a structure in place. The second thing is processes. Structured processes are the keys to success in whatever business you're in. Next thing is a commitment of your personnel to maintain the highest level of customer satisfaction, resulting in high retention. Another thing that's very important is to constantly be looking. A business that's successful is constantly marketing and looking for new customers. Fourth thing is the ability of your facilities to support the labor potential exists in your market area. I had a guy in my class yesterday trying to get on DRPs for 2 years, and the first thing I asked him, I said, "Do you have a frame machine?" He said, "No." If you don't have the right equipment, the insurance company don't want to play in your sandbox, and I don't blame them. Number 5 is a realistic marketing plan. Know who your customers are and have a plan for going after them. Number 6 is effective goals and action plans. We put together a pro forma that we can demonstrate to you what the potential exists in your collision center by simply looking at the number of units that are in operation in your market area. We can look at the number of units, multiply that by the average cost of repairs, and tell you how much square footage you need and what the expected return on that investment is. The collision center is a wonderful business opportunity, but like any other business, it must be professionally managed. It must be professionally managed. Any questions? Does anyone have any questions?
One of the issues that we have at our body shop is the fact that we're always seeing the need qualified technicians and qualified estimators. Do you have any idea or any thoughts on how to find
The question is, where do we find technicians? Where do we find estimators? And that is a tremendous problem. I think Auto Body Magazine just published the other day, we have a shortage of about 55,000 technicians today and about 170,000 in the next 2 years. And so we recommend to our clients a grow your own program. And by that I mean we put our paint shop on teams with a painter and 2 or 3 helpers, and we pay the painter a higher wage, pay those helpers $8, $10, $11 an hour, and when you combine those costs, you bring your overall costs down. And I have people in training working side by side with my painter. With our metal technicians, we have a mentor apprentice program where we have our metal technician, we either recruit someone to work with them or many times they recruit their own person and bring them in. And we put them on a 2-year structured program. The first 90 days, we give all of the work the apprentice produces to the mentor, and they get to keep all the hours they produce. After 90 days, the apprentice goes on a flat rate program, and for every hour the apprentice turns, the mentor technician the first 90 days will earn $7, $8, $10 an hour, flat rate hour for every hour they turn. At the end of 90 days, that comes down $1 for the mentor, and it goes up $1 for the apprentice. And we do that every month or every 3 months for 24 months, and at the end of 24 months, as long as that apprentice stays employed in that dealership, we will pay that technician that trained them $1 to $2 flat rate per hour that the apprentice turns. We also buy the apprentice their tools, and the reason we buy them their tools is the biggest barrier to success is when they come to work for you as an apprentice, when they get enough tools to get a flat rate job somewhere else, they leave. If we own the tools they want to leave, they're going to have to pay $4,000 or $5,000. But you got to have a grow your own program. The old days of stealing them from somebody down the street, that bus left the station 10 years ago. Any more questions? Thank you. I appreciate the time to be here in New Orleans with you today, and thank you for taking in on our session here.